World Diabetes Day takes place on the 14th of November and is driven globally by the International Diabetes Federation. We are now joined via Zoom by South African musician, presenter and actor Tshepo Howza Mosese. His influence to promote the fight against diabetes. Of course, Mosese is a diabetes survivor and uses his music and talks around the country to raise awareness about their condition. A very good afternoon to you, Tshepo. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Flo, and hello to the viewers out there.
Tshepo, it's a misconception, I suppose, and one that you've been trying to highlight, that diabetes is, perhaps an old person's disease, or, people that are not taking care of themselves, people who are not fit. You're a fit man, and so was that like a surprise for you in terms of knowing that you have diabetes?
Absolutely, because you need to understand that I was living with somebody who had diabetes, my late father, and that's how I always associated the condition with older people, because I just knew this man who's taking a whole lot of pills, and just associating diabetes with older age. Yeah. And when I was diagnosed, it came as a shocker. But obviously, I had to realize that, I'm the one that has to be responsible for my own health and my own life. And the key was to learn more about the condition so that I can, deal with the enemy. It's better to know who your enemy is, right?
Yeah. And I mean, now that you're saying, you had to make changes and learn, what were some of the changes, lifestyle changes you had to make in your life, after hearing that you yourself have it? I mean, and the reason I ask this is because you've generally looked to me like someone who's, a sort of a health fanatic, someone who exercises. So it worries me that, even people that are fit would have to be worrying about diabetes. And what sort of changes would you then have to implement, given that you already live, sort of a healthy lifestyle?
Yeah. Well, just before I was diagnosed with diabetes, I was new as a musician in the industry. Yeah. And obviously that meant, living the rock star life, drinking obliviously, eating whatever sorts of food that's on the road, without conscientizing what I'm putting in. Post having the condition of diabetes, I had to inquire a lot more about what to do and what not to do. And I really found that, diet is the key aspect to tackling this condition, making sure you eat the right foods. I mean, a couple of years later, I realized that, meat is not necessarily ideal in my diet. So I had to eliminate meat, and I started venturing onto the plant-based foods and whatnot. But most importantly, also just, changing my attitude as well about the condition, realizing that I'm not immune to it as young as I was, and therefore I need to take the responsibility and start exercising. I never used to exercise before that. Yeah. It all came with, me accepting that I have diabetes and I need to tackle it as a way forward.
Yeah, some people in impoverished communities, for example, can't necessarily pick and choose, what they can and can't eat. It's about what's readily available. I mean, you mentioned the fact that you've been able to perhaps try new diets, whether it's being a vegetarian or vegan, and those are seen as diets that can be a little bit expensive. And for some people, as I say, it's just about what you can afford. What's your advice to those people who say, look, I can't actually afford to have a vegan diet. I can't afford to go and be a vegetarian because this is what is available. This is what is readily available. And some of these things that, people are eating are actually causing, diabetes in our people generally.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, I've got a little garden in my house, and it's not big at all, but my daughter, my firstborn, inspired me to start gardening and planting basic vegetables like tomatoes, your spinach, your sweet potatoes, all these things. So it's all about using what you have to make a plan so that you don't encounter problems, because at the end of the day, it's your life, and if you don't take the responsibility for your own life, it catches up in the long run. I mean, if with sugar levels that are uncontrolled, it leads to many other complications in the future, which one does not want to encounter.
Yeah, and talking about the fact that it does at the end catch up. I mean, we all know that diabetes can indeed be life-threatening if not, managed properly. What advice would you give? And I think particularly to young people who don't pay, attention to their health. I mean, I for one probably haven't seen a GP in about a year or so.
Well, I've always, ever since I've been diagnosed, I've always felt the need, as somebody who's in the public eye, to collaborate with organizations like the Sanofis of this world, who run campaigns like the Diabetes Your Type. And really the message here is to inspire South Africans who are newly diagnosed to learn more about the condition, so that they can also educate other people who are not necessarily infected, but would like to know how to help somebody in their family who's living with diabetes. So with these campaigns, it's always better for someone like myself to speak more about it and encourage other people, and also serve as a beacon of hope, I guess. I mean, you mentioned how I look healthy and whatnot, and I'm hoping that will inspire someone out there to say, look, if Howza can look like this and he has diabetes, clearly this is not a death sentence. The trick is all about changing your attitude and your mentality, and everything else will fall into place.
You mentioned your daughter, and I'm just interested to find out, you having to change how your attitude towards eating and food and how you prepare your meals and so forth. Did that have an effect on your family? I mean, does your child have to, stop eating sweets, for example? I mean, they're children and they want to have certain foods, and I wonder if that's, something that you've had to implement in the house, that, if I'm going to eat like this, everybody's going to eat like this.
Well, I've been living with diabetes for a little over 18 years now, way before she was even born. So I think somebody that is attribute to me handling diabetes would be my life partner, who's always been by my side. She's the one that who's always by the pots and knows exactly what we need to eat as a family. And it doesn't only help me, but it also helps everyone else in the house to just be conscious of what we eat. I mean, my daughter's extremely healthy right now, even though she came in and had allergies, gluten allergies, which made it more a need for her to follow the right diet. So it's almost like we were a match made in heaven as a family to follow the right diets and whatever.
All right. Well, Tshepo, thanks very much for speaking to us, and in regards to your wife, I was actually at school with her. Many thanks to you. All right. That is Tshepo Howza Mosese speaking to us, of course, as a diabetes survivor then.